is the victim.
She walked up to me and reached and grabbed the bottle of vodka, and then just kind of stood back and then hurled it at me.
Tonight, we look at the testimony of Johnny and Amber. What does it reveal about their relationship? And what about all those secret recordings? What do they reveal?
Let me leave.
Stop rushing me! Stop pushing me in the corner and then poking me with a stick and then saying, why are you saying the words you want me to say?
We are live in Fairfax County, Virginia, as we prepare for the dramatic conclusion of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. As we've been watching this trial, listening to the testimony, and listening to the words of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard in describing their relationship, it might be confusing for someone who's never been in love, because the way they describe it, let me tell you, love stinks. You know, the way they're describing this passion that they had for one another. This was a dysfunctional relationship. It absolutely was from the beginning. And it was a mess, an absolute mess. If you're in a relationship like these two, get out of it. Walk away. Walk away quickly, because it's just not healthy. It's not normal. But this is what the jury has to deal with. And I look at this jury trying to figure out exactly what was happening here. It's like Mission Impossible. You know, you've got two people describing something completely different. They're each calling witnesses that have some level of alliance with them, that have very consistent testimony to what they're saying, and they've got to figure out what was going on in this utter mess, all of this chaos. Not an easy job for the jury. Because on the one hand, you have Johnny Depp taking the stand, and I mean, come on, he's a real charmer. This guy gets up on the stand, and you're gonna like him. He knows how to perform. He's got, what is it, that certain something that the French talk about, that whatever it is, he's got charisma, right? This is a guy who has been in the public light for a long time and understands how to get people to disarm themselves and like him. I mean, and we heard it from other witnesses as well. I mean, this is a guy who can be a real charmer. Now, Amber Heard says there's another side to him, and when she testified, I mean, the things that she described happening, absolutely horrific allegations. And if they're true, they are criminal. Criminal. We're talking about sexual assaults, brutal assaults, bottles, choking. I mean, everything. It's horrible what she described. And the jury's got to figure out, you know, who is Johnny Depp and what is going on here? Keep coming back to it. Not an easy job. So they listen to the testimony of both, and you get a different take on the nature of this relationship. You might be able to glean certain things from it, if there's some level of common denominators in the way they describe this relationship. But then there's another way they may be able to uncover what's really going on in this relationship, and that's the secret recordings that were made. Now, secret to the person who isn't recording them, so you have to take that into account. But all these recordings really demonstrate to us, both with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, much different than they were on the witness stand. And you're hearing them interact with one another, which really is the essence of what this case is about. What was going on between these two? Who's abusing who? Who's the instigator? Who's the one who gets physical? Who's the one who gets angry? And these recordings, I think, reveal a lot to this jury. Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae took a closer look.
Did something happen to you this morning? I don't think so.
Private conversations aired in a public courtroom are creating some of the most dramatic sights and sounds of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard's defamation trial.
Nothing happened this morning, you know that?
Were you in here?
No.
So then nothing happened to you this morning.
Long before the lawsuit that has landed the pair in court, Heard appears to secretly make this recording of an inebriated Depp in their California home.
No, that's the thing.
You want to see crazy? I'll give you crazy. That's crazy. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're crazy.
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this going. You got this going?
I just started it.
Oh, really?
This clip was played for a jury when both of the dueling spouses took to the witness stand, despite Depp's objection as to how it was obtained.
Do we have a date for this,
That's your house
illegally recorded tape?
3 months after recording the video, Heard filed for divorce in May of 2016. The process eventually brought to light more recordings the celebrity pair both had on each other.
Might have said, like, what the you know, whatever, because I'd just been hit in the head with the corner of the door.
I'm so sorry. I did not. I'm sorry.
And then I stood up. And then you clocked me.
I remember hating you as a response to the door thing. I'm sorry I hit you. I didn't mean to hit you, but it was in response. I just reacted in response to my foot. I just reacted. And I'm sorry. It's below me.
So Mr. Depp said, you meant to punch me in the jaw, right?
Are you asking me what he said on the recording? Yes, he said that.
And then you respond, I meant to hit you, didn't you?
As I explained yesterday, I was trying to get him off the door.
It's happening more and more with iPhones and Ring cameras and just cameras that are in the house. People are using recordings.
Family law and divorce attorney Sandra Radna says secret recordings between feuding spouses are legal unless state law requires consent from both parties.
If we're hearing it, the judge has already ruled that that's admissible evidence.
Let me leave.
Stop rushing me! Stop pushing me in the corner and then poking me with a stick and then saying, why are you saying the words you want me to say? Stop poking me! Stop rushing me! Stop throwing me against the wall! I'm going, what? You don't like that wall? You don't like wall? Stop pushing me!
Amber, I'm not pushing you. I'm not rushing you. I said, I need space.
California, where Depp and Heard lived, is a two-party state, meaning both people must be aware the conversation is being recorded. But testimony from the former spouses suggests this couple had a mutual agreement up front about hitting the record button.
I was the first person of the two of us to record conversations. She would deny having said those things. What are you talking about? You know, it was surreal.
First, it was meant to be a way to get to the heart of some of our communication issues, in order to discover in a therapeutic fashion kind of what was some of our issues in our communication.
Those communications now being used as major evidence in a multi-million-dollar legal fight.
It's really going to be up to who the jury believes. It's the issue of credibility, which is what it always comes down with the jury. Who does the jury find to be the more credible witness?
And it's those recordings the jury may look to. You know, you have the live testimony, obviously, but then those recordings, that's when they're actually interactive. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but first, I've got to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter live outside the courthouse, Fairfax, Virginia. Big news tonight in this case that everyone's talking about. Possible rebuttal witnesses in this case that could be huge for Johnny Depp and his team. What can you tell us tonight, Chanley?
Right, we're learning and confirming that Jennifer Howe will be before this jury next week in Johnny Depp's rebuttal case, and here's why she is important. You may remember during the testimony of Amber's sister, Whitney Enriquez, she was cross-examined about this woman, Jennifer Howe, who runs an LA-based nonprofit called the Art of Elysium, and Whitney worked with this Jennifer and even lived with this Jennifer after the 2015 staircase incident between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Amber Heard testified that in this incident where she confronted Johnny Depp about having an affair, that her sister tried to break up a fight in which Amber feared Johnny was going to push Whitney down the flight of stairs, so she had to punch Johnny in the face. Well, Whitney took the stand. She corroborated that version of her sister's story on the stand. But what we know is in a court document filed here at the Fairfax County Courthouse court file, there's a defense document from 2020 with an exhibit that shows an alleged declaration by Jennifer Howe, the woman that Whitney went to live with after this staircase incident. Now, this apparent declaration is an exhibit, and it was questioned by the defense in this court document as being illegitimate, not something that was a legitimate declaration, because it was never turned over to the defense, even though they subpoenaed to have this, and it was only leaked when Adam Waldman leaked it on his Twitter page. So they want this declaration excluded from evidence in this court document, but we get to read what this declaration said, Vinnie. It's riddled with hearsay, but Jennifer Howe alleges that Whitney told her that it was Amber who attacked Johnny Depp on the staircase after confronting him about having that affair, and that it was Amber who almost pushed Whitney down the stairs, and that Whitney told Jennifer that she was worried Amber was going to kill Johnny Depp in that incident. Now, this declaration goes on to talk a lot about other things like Amber's mother and Elon Musk, but ultimately it says that, according to Whitney, Amber was extremely violent and even abused her sister Whitney, and it's something that Whitney had to live with. Her father abused her, and then her sister Amber would abuse her. So, while this declaration likely won't be in because it is full of hearsay, like I said, Vinnie, we do know that there is a pre-recorded deposition that Jennifer Howe gave that could talk about her writing a letter to Whitney, confronting her about lying for her sister Amber now in the UK trial, and of course maybe in this trial. So what, if anything, a part of that information will be before this jury in that deposition is going to come up next week.
Yeah, I mean, this could be huge in the rebuttal. If you have a witness, and I think it'd be better if the witness was live and you could, but we'll see how that all plays out. But if this witness heard Whitney, Amber's sister, say something completely different than what she testified to in front of this jury, that could be a big, big problem for Amber Heard. All right, Chandler, we're going to check back with you in just a little bit. Big week coming up. I want to bring in Los Angeles, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and associate professor at Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho. Great to see you, doctor. Let's get back to what I was talking about here with these recordings of Amber and Johnny versus their live testimony. I think these recordings, because they're actually interacting, right? They're speaking with each other. This jury gets a much different flavor for the nature of this relationship. Your thoughts about it, because in some of these recordings, one person knows the recording's going on and the other doesn't necessarily. But as I listen to it, it's hard for me to tell who even is recording it, because they seem so different in the recording than they did on the witness stand.
Well, absolutely, Vinnie. And we're talking about what at least one of the individuals, or maybe in some instances, even the person who started the recorder, they could forget in the middle of a conflict that the recorder was on in the first place. So we're talking about private life when they believe that they're not being filmed and they don't have to cater to what the public might think, to their demeanor in court, which is essentially in many ways a performance, right? So I'm not talking about this just because both of them are actors, which obviously they're very familiar with how to project a certain persona when they're in front of people, but just in general, when there is a court trial, it's a performance for both sides. It's a performance for the defense attorney, for the plaintiff's attorney. It's a performance for all of the different witnesses that are called, because the jury is watching every single person and trying to make a decision about who they should be trusting and who they shouldn't. And so I think that's why you see that stark difference, because in these recordings, they believe, or at least one of the people believe, that they're in complete privacy, right? When you're in court, that is tempered. They also have attorneys advising them on how to dress in court, what their demeanor should be like in court. They're being coached in many ways by their counsel most of the time. And that's why we see such a discrepancy.
So in this video, we see Johnny Depp appears to be under the influence and frustrated with something, although it's not really clear. I don't think it's clear to Amber Heard either what he's frustrated with, but something happened earlier that morning. And it turns into an argument. And what really makes him the most angry is the fact that he's being recorded. That's when he gets the most angry. But in these other audio recordings that we have, I'm listening to Amber Heard, and her demeanor much, much different. And the dynamic of the relationship is not classic wife beater and victim. It's a much different dynamic.
Absolutely. And I think that this is why this idea of whether or not there really is mutual abuse going on here is going to keep coming up. In our profession, Vinnie, most of the psychologists that I work with, they're careful about using the term mutual abuse, because generally it is believed that in domestic abuse cases, there is a perpetrator for the most part and somebody who defends themselves. So even if the person is defending themselves, and so then in that way, they also engage in physical aggression, that person is still generally the victim. They were just defending themselves, as opposed to being an instigator or essentially being the person who is at the top of the power dynamic that is influencing that domestic violence interaction. I don't know in this case if we clearly have a full-on perpetrator and a person who's always the victim. I know that a lot of people think that Johnny is a person who's mostly in power because he's got the bigger fame, he's got more finances, resources, etc. But you could also argue that Amber, she's younger, she's beautiful, she may have other types of things that actually put her in a power position. And we're starting to hear testimony that Johnny is a jealous person. We heard that from somebody he used to be involved with, Ellen Barkin, that he was a jealous person. And so if that is the case, the person who is the jealous person in this case, they could be seen as somebody who has the one down in the power dynamic because they're afraid that their partner might be leaving them for somebody. And then that kind of dynamic could exist. Then that would actually put Amber on top. And so I don't think we're going to get super clear answers just yet. But I think people are thinking about that and wondering, really, is there somebody who's always in power in this relationship? Or is it more of a mutual back and forth?
Yeah, I referred to it for the jury, mission impossible, but we're going to try to make it possible for you tonight. Dr. Judy Ho staying with us. We'll bring in the rest of our guests and we'll go through the testimony of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Don't go anywhere.
rebuttal.com.
So I was always a very private person. So for me to come up here and stand before you, or sit before you all, and spill the truth is quite exposing.
Yeah, this trial, very exposing, and one of the reasons many people question why it's even happening, but Johnny Depp wants to clear his name. He says he was wrongfully accused of being a wife beater. Johnny Depp's testimony, crucial in this case, so is Amber Heard's. First, what we're going to do right now is focus on Johnny Depp. Joy Lim Nakrin, Court TV legal correspondent, takes a closer look.
It's a star-studded drama, 6 years in the making.
It's been 6 years of trying times. One day you're Cinderella, so to speak, and then in 0.6 seconds you're Quasimodo.
It's drawing fans from far and wide.
Johnny's an outstanding gent. I grew up watching his movies.
It's surreal for me. I feel like I'm in Johnny Depp's new movie.
Actor Johnny Depp is suing ex-wife Amber Heard for defamation.
I had to wait for my opportunity to address the charges, which were criminal charges, and they just weren't true. So I felt the responsibility of clearing the record.
His claims stem from a 2018 op-ed Heard wrote in the Washington Post accusing Depp of domestic abuse. Depp says Heard is the one who abused him.
She picked up a can of mineral spirits about yay big and just heaved it at me, and it struck me on the bridge of the nose.
And what did you say in response when Miss Heard said, "Tell the world, Johnny, tell them Johnny Depp, I, Johnny Depp, a man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence"?
I said, yes, I am.
During his in-depth direct examination testimony, Depp revealed his troubled childhood and described an abusive mother who spared no one, including his own father.
To me, as a 5-year-old boy, I kept thinking to myself, I kept wondering why does he take it? How does he take this? And why doesn't he leave her? But he didn't. He was able to maintain his calm and his composure. He was able to maintain his relationship with his children. He was a good man.
Depp later tried to draw parallels between his abusive mother and ex-wife Amber Heard.
I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice. So at a certain point, when what enters your mind is you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother, in a sense. And I know that sounds perverse and obtuse, but the fact is that some people search for weaknesses in people.
But his long, rambling narratives on direct examination were quickly cut short during a contentious cross-examination, which featured troubling text exchanges with co-star Paul Bettany.
In this text, you text Mr. Bettany, "Let's burn Amber," 3 exclamation points, right? You see that?
I do see that.
And at this time, June 11, 2013, Amber is your girlfriend, or perhaps even your fiance at this point, correct?
Girlfriend, yeah, for sure.
And you didn't stop when you said, "Let's burn Amber." Because the next text down, you can move down and blow up the next text, please, Michelle. You say, "Let's drown her before we burn her."
Heard's attorney, Benjamin Rottenborn, also confronted Depp with damning evidence about abusing drugs.
Paul Bettany's a good friend that you've done drugs with, right?
That's a strange question. Paul Bettany is a good friend.
I'd like to take a look at the text that you sent to Paul Bettany on July 11th. You write to Mr. Bettany, "You may have to drink for me. I, of course, pounded and displayed ugly colors to Amber on a recent journey. I am an insane person and not so fair-headed after too much of the drink. Weed, pills, fine. Booze, my capacity is too large and I won't stop. Ugly and sad.
Depp admits to drug and alcohol issues, but suggests Heard exaggerated and exploited his addiction.
Miss Heard wasn't the only one who had a problem with your drinking, correct?
Sir, if anyone had a problem with my drinking at any time in my life, it was me. The only person that I have ever abused in my life is myself.
That is significant. That last little piece right there, right? Because Amber Heard is and her team tying the drug abuse to the violence. Let's bring in our guest, still with us, clinical forensic neuropsychologist, associate professor, Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho. Joining us now in Los Angeles, California, Deputy Public Defender for Los Angeles County, Philip Dubé, and in Winchester, Virginia, body language expert who specializes in micro-expressions, Dr. Stephen Langston is with us. Great to see everyone. Dr. Stephen Langston, I'll begin with you. Johnny Depp, what do you see when you hear him testify?
You know, I think Johnny really has the testimony down. He's been coached very well on how to give his message and the ways to prove his points. If you look at it, he is absolutely bringing in grooves. He is using the right body language to bring in his message, and it really sucks you into it. When he's talking about the mineral spirits can, he's pointing to his nose. You could almost feel that pain. I think he's got this dialed in. You know, in this whole case, you're trying to figure out who is the one who's telling the right story, who's doing it. And when I see Johnny going at this and I see his body language and how it relates to his story, he's got me sucked in and convinced. I can almost feel that pain regularly when he talks.
Philip Dubé, you know, he said, she said, we're looking at what he said right now. Your thoughts about the way he was on direct and cross-examination?
I thought, truthfully, that he did a great job on direct. You know, he's a little slow in the uptake, frankly. I don't know if it's because he's brain fried from all the drugs, or if he's just, you know, long in the tooth, frankly. He's getting up there. His ability to recall is there, but it does take a while after he struggles to find the right words. But he is pensive, he is very introspective, and I think he is trying to clear his name. But I will say, though, that I think he has a romanticized view of who he is. You know, remember, there are those videos of him that are very unflattering, you know, throwing things around, breaking things, and he says he's not violent, he's not this, he's not that. But then you have eyewitnesses coming in like Amber's makeup artist who testified to all the bruising on the bridge of her nose that she had to cover up with some pretty thick pancake makeup, you know, and then you have Whitney, whose testimony is now in question, coming in to say what she observed, you know, and then you have Raquel, who testified that, you know, Johnny pulled a tuft of hair right out of her skull, and you see her bleeding. So, you know, yes, Johnny did well, but remember, this is several years after the fact, and now the jury has to kind of consolidate it all and decide, you know, is this just the codependent, symbiotic world of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, or is there really some truth to what he's saying, or is the truth somewhere in the middle? If the jury can't figure it out, both sides take zero.
Dr. Stephen Langston, what are your thoughts about the mannerisms of Johnny Depp? Sometimes when he'll smile, the back and forth with the defense attorney, Mr. Rottenborn, and would continue to use his name, Rottenborn.
You know, I think it's really interesting, and this is a fascinating review of the behavior, because I think when you look at this from a body language standpoint, you're looking for the baseline and deviations from that baseline. Interesting enough, when it comes to actors like this, is the baseline that you have and the perception is based off these characters. We know Johnny Depp has created you know, wonderful characters that we've fallen in love with over the years. And when you see him here, you know, his tone, his voice has changed, his body language, he's actually closed up. He's got his shoulders kind of pulled in when he's talking. He's looking down. He is not the larger than life character that he normally plays. And I think it's working for him in this case, because his manners are showing that he is in pain. And everything he's doing to pull it in and hold it, he's coping with it. It's definitely different than what we're used to seeing with him. And it's evident that this gentleman's definitely going through some stuff.
Okay. Our guest staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at Amber Heard's testimony. direct, and of course, that cross-examination.
Free at SmileDirectClub.com.
I struggle to have the words. I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is. This is horrible. This is the most painful and difficult thing I've ever gone through.
This trial has been difficult, I think, for everyone involved, right? I mean, if this was your relationship and it was playing out this way, wouldn't be easy, regardless of what the truth is. Regardless of what the truth is. Now, Julie Janae, going to take a closer look right now at Amber Heard's testimony, then we'll break it down.
10 days days after her ex-husband testified in front of a jury.
I, as a woman, had never been hit like that.
Actress Amber Heard spent 4 days explaining her side of their volatile relationship.
It was a friendship, flirtatious.
Heard met Depp when she auditioned for his movie, The Rum Diary. The two began dating in late 2011. Then Depp popped the question in 2014.
My dad told me, Johnny has asked me permission for your hand in marriage. And I felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
The fairy tale courtship, Heard said, turned horrific when Depp drank and did drugs. She detailed the movie star's reaction to a tattoo he inked for former girlfriend Winona Ryder. Depp had it changed to read "Wino Forever."
I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. He said, "You think it's so funny? You think it's funny? You think you're a funny?" And he slapped me again.
After this first incident, Heard described for the jury a relationship haunted by physical abuse. Violent episodes, she said, happened during vacations, on flights, and in their California home.
As he kind of just pushed me down, held me down by it, and kind of pulled me into it, and he was asking me, kind of taunting me, asking me if I thought I was so tough. You think you're such a tough guy, huh? Are you so tough now? Look who's so tough. You want to be a man? Those are scars that I obtained while Johnny was strangling me and assaulting me on the countertop in Australia.
While under direct examination, Heard appeared composed during difficult testimony, and at other times, she careened into intense emotion.
I felt this pressure. My pubic bone. He thought he was punching me.
These accounts all supporting her defense to the $50 million lawsuit against her. Depp sued Heard in 2019 for defamation when she alluded to being a survivor of his domestic violence in a Washington Post op-ed.
It's not about Johnny. The only one who thought it was about Johnny is Johnny. It's about me. It's about what happened to me after Johnny. It's about what happened to me after I escaped my marriage. It was about me and my life and what I endured once I moved on.
While on cross-examination, Depp's attorney, Camille Vasquez, used some of Heard's own recorded words during an altercation where Depp was attempting to leave.
I'm gonna die at this age. I'm gonna die. You're causing me so much stress. Please stop. Please stop. I've been begging you not to fight.
It's you and Mr. Depp in the recording, correct, Miss Heard?
That's correct.
You just won't let him go, will you?
That's not true.
Depp's defense challenged his ex-wife's claims, alleging instead she was the abusive one.
Tell them Johnny Depp, Johnny Depp, a man, a victim too of domestic violence, end quote. That's what you said, right?
I was saying it to the man who beat me up, yes.
You're the one who assaulted someone with a bottle in Australia, isn't that right, Miss Heard?
I didn't assault Johnny in Australia. I didn't assault Johnny ever. I couldn't.
And then after he was injured, he had to hide from you, right?
That is incorrect.
5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms.
That is incorrect.
Repeated questions about abusing Depp prompted Heard to break her gaze from the jury and stare down her courtroom opponent.
He knows he's lying. Otherwise, why can't he look at me? I survived. I survived that man, and I'm here, and I'm able to look at him.
Let's bring back in our guests. Still with us, Dr. Judy Ho, Philip Dubé, Dr. Stephen Langston. Dr. Judy Ho, let me ask you. We heard Amber Heard say the most difficult thing that she's had to go through is this trial and reliving all of this publicly. For someone who's been through a violent sexual assault, can reliving that publicly be more difficult than the actual sexual assault, more traumatic?
Well, in some of the victims that I've actually evaluated and worked with, they will absolutely say that this is a trigger for any kind of post-traumatic reactions they may have had when they were abused. And that's because it causes them to have to relive the memories. If they don't have the help of a professional who's guiding them through that, especially, that can be more harmful. It's almost like a second wave of trauma. So that's certainly something that could be possible here. But at the same time, there's also people who will sometimes utilize that as maybe a way to explain away whatever people are seeing in the courtroom that may put them in a negative light. You know, why were you so emotional? Even if it's due to something else, they may use this as a reason. So it really depends. And I think, again, we're talking about somebody who has been in a relationship with somebody who has, at the very least that we can see from Johnny Depp's tapes, from the testimonies, that he had a bad temper. And what people respond to and what they call trauma, it just varies from individual to individual. Somebody could be traumatized by being screamed at, but somebody else could be traumatized only after they've been physically abused over and over again. And that really just depends on the individual in terms of what they find traumatizing and if they're telling the truth.
Dr. Stephen Langston, a body language expert specializing in micro expressions. What do you see? What do you hear through the testimony of Amber Heard?
You know, Amber's really, I think she's confusing a lot of the jury, because a lot of her statements and a lot of her body language and stuff is not congruent with the things she's saying. She's often trying to say yes and she's nodding no. And we specifically look at her facial expressions. They seem a little over exaggerated, which is why I think she's getting so much flack. Typically, a micro expression or something along that lines of expressed emotion is done quick. And I'm not talking about when she's breaking down to crying into her, when she actually had that severe crying attack during the testimony, but even during her conversations, her fears, it's not like it's just a simple twitch. She's over exaggerating, almost like a cartoon, almost like acting, which I think is giving her a really bad rep. Now, I did go back and look at some of her previous interviews to see things specifically around her speech pattern, because she uses a lot of fillers. There's a lot of ums and ahs and you knows. When you go back and look at her previous interviews, that is actually part of her speech pattern. What's not a part of her speech pattern is these long, dramatic pauses. She's looking down, almost like she's trying to think about what she's trying to pull together. It doesn't really match with it, and I think it's confusing the jury.
Philip Dubé, you have seen so many victims, accusers, and alleged victims testify. What's your take on Amber Heard as a victim on the witness stand?
On direct, I'm not going to lie to you, Vinny. I actually got kind of choked up. I truly believed her. Seriously, I got a little teary-eyed and truly thought that she was having a flashback, having to relive that nightmare. And she was probably ashamed to have to admit to the world, you know, basically in a live studio audience there, what happened to her. And I think she tried to keep it quiet for the longest time. And now she's had to relive that. I cannot imagine the physical pain that she went through by being penetrated with a bottle. I don't know if you remember, Vinny, years back, Court TV covered the Lorena Bobbitt trial, ironically out of Virginia. And she took the stand and had to relive that moment when she was raped by John Wayne Bobbitt before she severed his member. And let me tell you, she went through those long pauses. She probably didn't have the most perfect body language, but I got choked up back then, and she was acquitted. The jury believed her that she was a battered spouse and went through that irresistible impulse and literally severed his junk, because that was the instrumentality of his anger. And unfortunately, in this case, if the jury buys it, that bottle was the instrumentality of Johnny Depp's anger toward Amber Heard. And we'll see.
We shall. Philip Dubé, unbelievable, finding a couple that was actually more dysfunctional than Johnny Depp and Amber Heard on this Friday night. We thank you, Philip, for that. Dr. Stephen Langston, great to have you on the program. Dr. Judy Ho, always a pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you again. The trial's not over. When we come back, we're going to take you back live to Fairfax County, Virginia. Chanley Painter will join us, and she's going to set up how it's all going to play out next week. You know, what's going to be the schedule? When, how will they let us know when the verdict's been reached? How much time for the closing arguments? You know, we've got to make a schedule for next week. Chanley's going to help us next.
today.
As far as times go, I can give you your updated times as of this minute. For plaintiff has used 42 hours and 45 minutes. Defendant has used 53 hours and 1 minute.
Let me just go on the record officially. Love this judge. Absolutely love this judge. And she is keeping time on she's got the trial timed out. It's amazing. I've never seen it before. We don't cover a lot of civil cases, but I haven't seen it done this way. Let's bring back in Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent. Judge has done an amazing job from start to finish in this case. Let's just get that on the record. I mean, you've got all these people, all these things, insane case. She is keeping order, which is amazing. Now, Chanley, tell me about this time limit and explain how that is playing out.
Yeah, this judge really runs a tight ship, but she's also nice and approachable and really does handle the attorneys and the objections quite well, all things considered. But she has this so mapped out, Vinnie, that it's perfectly timed for a 6-week trial, the amount that she qualified the jurors for, and each side was allotted 61 hours and 15 minutes to present their total cases. So, like we heard, Depp has used 42 hours, 45 minutes, which means he has 18 hours and 30 minutes next week in which to present his rebuttal case, and Amber Heard has used 53 hours and 1 minute so far, so she only has 8 hours and 14 minutes in which she needs to wrap up her case in chief, Vinnie, and maybe preserve some of that time for a rebuttal case to Johnny Depps, a rebuttal coming up next week. So that gives us an idea, but what we do know is that all of these calculations will come to fruition before Friday, which the judge has planned closing arguments. So that's what next week looks like.
Well, and that's why I'll be there Thursday. I'll be there Thursday night. I'll be there Friday, and maybe, just maybe, I'll be there for the verdict. We'll see. You never know what the jury's going to do. All right, so what does the schedule look like for closing arguments? How's that going to go?
Yeah, we learned today during a jury instruction conference and hearing this morning, no cameras, but the public was allowed to observe this conference. Very informative. And what we learned is that the judges allotted 2 hours each for closing arguments next Friday, May 27th, starts at 9 a.m. Eastern. So each side will have a couple of hours to wrap up their case. And we also learned that for Johnny Depp, his attorneys Benjamin Chu and Camille Vasquez will be giving the closings, and then Elaine Bredhoft and Benjamin Rottenborn will be delivering the closings for Amber Heard, much like we did see during the opening statements almost 6 weeks ago now, Vinnie. But also, for those 2 hours, they really have to time this out because only 2 hours to accomplish this. First, Depp's closing, then Heard's closing, and the rebuttal to Depp's, of course, and then Depp's rebuttal to Heard's closing, and then Heard has another chance to rebut, but only to the counterclaim argument finally. So they have to divide their time out to cover those order of closing arguments, Vinnie.
That's interesting. And again, this is different. It's different than a criminal case, and you've got claims going both ways. We can't forget that Johnny Depp is being sued by Amber Heard as well. Okay, so this is the other part. Like, how is this going to play out now? Like the plan for deliberations and reaching a verdict and then announcing the verdict in court. What's the plan down there in Fairfax County?
Yeah, and so this has definitely been delineated to everyone in the courtroom so that it hopefully goes smoothly. But what we do know right now, we have 9 jurors, right? Only 7 will be the deliberating jury, but those alternates will be dismissed or designated after closing arguments, but on standby in case during the deliberations we lose a juror or 2, so under admonitions. Also, during a jury question, the parties, Heard and Depp, can waive their appearance for the reading of a question, answering of a question in the courtroom for the attorneys to go over. And we know that deliberations, well, they will begin on Friday, Vinnie. The judge has indicated that she's not going to serve the jury dinner, so that may incentivize them to go home a little bit early and maybe come back the Tuesday after Memorial Day if they have not reached a decision, because like you said, there's a lot for them to go over. I think the verdict forms are 4 or 5 pages long with this countersuits going back and forth. So if and when we do reach a verdict, there will be a 1 hour time to return to the courthouse so the parties don't have to wait here. Depp and Heard don't have to wait here at the courthouse because that requires extra security here at the courthouse, as you know. And so they can also waive their appearance, though, for this verdict. So there is some kind of an engagement that Depp has that week of Memorial Day that may prevent him from even being here for his own verdict.
All right, we'll talk more about that next week for sure. Chanley Painter breaking it all down. Get some rest. We've got a big week coming up. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to bring in the think tank next.
At SmileDirectClub.com.
In Fairfax County, Virginia, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard now preparing for the final week of testimony after 5 weeks of allegations and denials in the courtroom.
Nothing I did changed his rage at me. Nothing I did changed the violence towards me. Nothing I did calmed him down.
What did you say in response when Miss Heard said, "Tell the world, Johnny, I'm a victim too of domestic violence"?
I said yes. I am.
Tonight, does Johnny Depp have a witness who will undermine the credibility of Amber's sister Whitney and her testimony about the staircase incident?
He comes up behind me, strikes me in the back, kind of just somewhere over here. He strikes me in the back. I hear Amber shout, "Don't hit my sister."
And what about Johnny? Will the jury think he's a good guy or a bad guy?
The only person that I have ever abused in my life is myself.
Don't put your cigarettes out on someone else. You have consequences for your actions. That's it.
Shut up, fat ass.
On the docket tonight in Las Vegas, Nevada, former Playboy model Kelsey Turner getting ready for her trial, charged with the murder of a California doctor.
I warned him on Saturday when he was there that, maybe you ought not wait till Monday to come home.
Plus, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's testimony, obviously the most important evidence in this case, but their descriptions of what happened are so different. So, tonight's 13th juror question, other than Johnny or Amber, who was the most important witness in the trial? Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us on this Friday night. This is Closing Arguments, and those closing arguments in Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard next Friday, 1 week from tonight. Unbelievable. Let's talk about Amber's sister. Can we do that for a second? She was a pretty powerful witness for Amber Heard. I mean, if you believe what she said, Johnny Depp not only was abusive towards Amber Heard, but would hit anyone in his way, including Whitney. Let me remind you about what Whitney said on the witness stand.
Please continue.
They're saying horrible things to one another. You know, he's calling her a used up trash bag, whatever. They were saying horrible things to one another. She was calling him old and fat. It was a fight. They were saying really nasty things to one another. I leave them in the kitchen to go up the stairs. I was trying to calm Amber down, hopefully get her back into my apartment. And Debbie had come up with me.
And Debbie, who's Debbie?
Debbie was his nurse at the time.
Debbie Lloyd?
Yes, I believe that was her name.
Okay.
So we're with Amber on the mezzanine level.
I'm sorry, just so we know who where is. Is it you and Debbie that are with Amber, or is it?
Yes, Debbie, Amber, and I are all in the little mezzanine area. And as I mentioned, the mezzanine overlooks the kitchen and the living room. So Johnny then hurls a Red Bull can and it hits Debbie in the back. She didn't even react. She didn't really seem to notice. But I'm standing up there talking, I'm at the top of the stairs with my back to the stairs. And that's when Johnny runs up the stairs. And again, I'm facing Amber. He comes up behind me, strikes me in the back, kind of just somewhere over here. He strikes me in the back. I hear Amber shout, "Don't hit my sister." She smacks him, lands one. And then he grabs, at that point, that's when Travis runs up the stairs after Amber landed one. But by that time, Johnny had already grabbed Amber by the hair with one hand and was whacking her repeatedly in the face with the other as I was standing there. Travis pulls them apart. I get Amber into mine. I close the doors behind me and lock them. I then hear Johnny's voice shouting.
Never mind, withdraw. Okay, sorry.
I hear Johnny's voice shouting, I hate you. I hate you both. You. And I hear crashing. I hear crashing and banging and smashing, and he starts screaming like an animal. And I then just moved Amber into the next room, and I just kept her there all night. The next day, I go, and I see her closet has been completely destroyed.
Just a couple things. One, it really caught my attention in that little soundbite that we played there where she said, "I went back to my apartment." No, they're all Johnny Depp's apartments. People are just staying there. Like all these people are staying there. To me, that was, it kind of caught my attention. But the other part is he continually hit her. And remember, this is after he had severed his finger and he's got a cast. So he'd be punching her repeatedly with the cast. Now, today we learned about another witness who will be called in Johnny Depp's rebuttal, who may offer more information about that staircase incident. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter joining us live tonight with more. This could be huge for Johnny Depp. Who is this witness? What is she going to say?
Yeah, this could be a game changer for Johnny Depp next week during rebuttal case. Jennifer Howe is her name. If you remember on the cross-examination of Whitney Heard, she's asked about her friend Jennifer Howe, who she lived with in May 2015 for about a year. And what we know about Jennifer is that she runs this LA-based nonprofit that Whitney worked with her at while she lived with her. And there is this staircase incident. And Jennifer has an alleged declaration, Vinnie, that we found in a court document from 2020. And what it entails is Whitney giving Jennifer a very different set of facts than she testified to just then on the witness stand. So this document is a part of a defense court filing wanting this declaration out of evidence. It wants it excluded from this trial because they say it was never turned over to them, this declaration of Jennifer Howe, and that it was leaked by Adam Waldman, so they are questioning its veracity. Now, in this controversial declaration, essentially Jennifer claims that Whitney told her that it was Amber who attacked Johnny Depp on the staircase after confronting him about having an affair, and that it was Amber who almost pushed Whitney down the stairs, and that Whitney told Jennifer that she was worried Amber was going to kill Johnny in that incident. Now, this declaration also states that Whitney told her that Amber was just an extremely violent person and that Whitney had endured all kinds of abuse her entire life from her father and from her sister Amber. And so while this declaration, of course, Vinnie, is just riddled with hearsay statements, it's unlikely it will come in, but what we do know is that Jennifer Howe gave a pre-recorded deposition for this trial, and I'm sure it's been hammered out as far as the hearsay redactions in this transcript. It could even involve her talking about a letter she wrote to Whitney confronting her about why she was lying now for her sister. So that deposition is expected to be before this jury next week as a part of Johnny Depp's rebuttal.
You know, this could be so powerful. If I'm Johnny Depp's team, fly her in. Wherever she is, fly her into Virginia. Yeah. Bring that testimony live. I think it could be extremely powerful. Chanley Painter working overtime. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Join us tonight in New York City, former senior homicide prosecutor Bernarda Villalona, in San Diego, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Brian Watkins. Of course, you can contact him at brianwatkinslaw.com. And in Cleveland, Ohio, criminal defense attorney Ian Friedman. Great to see everyone tonight. How huge is this if this witness comes in and testifies and the jury believes that Whitney lied for her sister on the stand about what happened on that staircase? Bernarda.
Well, if this witness comes in and testifies that Whitney lied on the stand, guess what? She will only be confirming what a lot of us has been thinking from the very beginning of this trial, that Amber Heard has been lying or exaggerating of what happened to her. So all of this just goes to corroborate Johnny Depp's version that Amber Heard is exaggerating and lying about what happened. Again, this case is going to boil down to credibility. And when you have someone from the outside coming in telling you that a person lied and we already feel that they lied, guess what? Game over. Amber Heard, you're not going to see that $100 million, girl. Time to move on.
Brian Watkins, to me, the rebuttal case is about those big moments, right? It's not a long case, but you need those big, big moments. And if you can impeach and undermine the credibility of Amber Heard's sister with a witness, I mean, I think you've got to do anything you can to put that witness in front of this jury if, in fact, Whitney told her something completely different than what she told this jury.
That's true. And you know how huge this is. It's not just that testimony, and it's not just about what happened on that staircase. If they bring in this witness and it completely impeaches her sister, that impeaches her whole case, because they're saying, if you did this to tell this story, I can't believe any of the other stories that you told me, because you are going above and beyond and out of your way to lie on this staircase incident. All your other stories to me are worthless. And that's how huge it is, because it undermines their whole credibility. It undermines their ethics is really what it is. And once you lose that, their case is shot.
You know, Brian makes such a great point, Ian, when you talk about a credibility battle, right? It's the credibility of your statements, but it's the credibility of your entire case, because Amber Heard's she represents her entire case. And if she has her sister lying on the witness stand, again, this isn't if. The jury's, number one, they've got to produce the witness, number one. Jury's got to believe this witness over Whitney's testimony. But if you have an opportunity for that moment and you could pull that off, and all of a sudden the jury is saying, wait a minute, she got her sister to say this on this story. I wonder if we can believe any of her friends. I wonder if we can believe the makeup artist. I wonder if we certainly can't believe. I mean, it comes crumbling down.
Yeah, this is not the normal witness. We've seen a lot of witnesses over the last 6 weeks of this trial. It's not like the witnesses are forgetting things or have kind of different memories of what happened. This is the person closest to Amber Heard. If this other witness comes in and completely impeaches her and says that's not what happened, this is bigger than any other witness, because this is the person closest to Amber Heard, and the jury is naturally going to say, wait a second, clearly the two sisters spoke, clearly there's collusion here. Clearly, she knew what her sister was going to say, and she condoned that lie, and then it just falls and reflects right upon her. So if this goes down the way it's expected to next week, this is big damage. This is a big damage here. And as you said earlier, Vinny, you got something like this, I mean, this is it. You want to put this right on the pedestal, right with the lights, and look to the ladies and gentlemen and just say, watch this one go. I mean, this could hurt. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, and I know a lot of witnesses in the case have been presented via video deposition, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. I would want to do anything and everything to get her to Fairfax County, Virginia. They got 2 airports close by. You can go to Ronald Reagan. You can go to Dulles. A lot of hotels, Cheesecake Factory. They got everything down there. You know, just fly the witness in. The other thing, Bernarda, can you tell what I did when I was there last time? So the other thing about the staircase thing that didn't make sense to me is in Whitney's description was that Johnny is the one who's enraged. And all the stories that we've heard is that Johnny gets drunk or does drugs, and that's when the monster comes out. But in this scenario, the way I understand the story is that Johnny is fast asleep. And he left one of his devices open, may have been an iPad, iPhone, or laptop, I don't know, something. And she was able to see some message from an ex. And she is the one who at this moment is jealous and angry about what was going on. And I think about that, and I think about, well, is that going to bring the monster out? And would he charge up the stairs and strike Whitney and then go after Amber with the cast on and just pummel her face?
Look, Vinny, this entire staircase scenario just does not make any sense at all. Number one, we know Johnny Depp, he was sleeping. And guess what? You tell the jury during closing arguments, you don't leave your common sense at the door. Just because you're a juror doesn't mean that you leave your common sense at the door. Common sense tells you you have a woman who just found out that her man was cheating on her, and she's upset to the point that she wakes up her man who is actually sleeping and has no idea why this woman is upset. You've come to think that the person that is enraged during this entire situation would be Amber Heard. Johnny Depp is just waking up and be like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? I'm coming out of my sleep. You just don't wake up in a mad rage from sleeping. Common sense tells you it comes from Amber Heard. And again, you can't have it both ways because the monster just doesn't come out at all times. So stick to one scenario, please.
Yeah, that's the part that really struck me because it was so different than all the other incidents that were described, all the other attacks described by Amber Heard, clearly Johnny was, you know, doing drugs or alcohol, according to Amber, but this one, much, much different. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at Johnny Depp, because his character also on trial in this case. What will the jury think of Johnny? Will they think Johnny be good or Johnny be bad? We'll break it down next.
With worthy.com.
What is your understanding of the reason why Mr. Depp terminated you?
I really don't know. All I know is he terminated essentially everyone in his life, so I was along for the ride, I guess.
That was Johnny Depp's former talent agent, and not necessarily having kind words about Johnny Depp. Now, she was fired by Johnny Depp, but nonetheless, not glowing words. And there were a series of witnesses brought by Amber Heard in this case who attacked the credibility of Johnny Depp and talked about Johnny behaving badly, not being the nice guy. Let's take a listen.
Showing up late to set consistently on virtually every movie. I would get yelled at. I never said to him, "You're a difficult client." I never used those words, but I was very honest with him and said, "You've got to stop doing this. This is hurting you." And it did. Well, initially, crews loved him because he was always so great with the crew, but crews don't love sitting around for hours and hours and hours waiting for the star of the movie to show up.
You want to see crazy? I'll give you
Someone who liked to enjoy his wine at the end of the day became consumption that seemed excessive. And the ability to coordinate and find times when he would meet became more difficult. And it became clear over time that there were issues with alcohol and drugs. And that translated into more erratic behavior, more stressful behavior, more times when it was difficult to engage in the kinds of conversations I needed to do my job. There was a combination of events, what felt like professional pressures, what felt like some professional dissatisfactions, what I sensed was likely strains in his relationship with Amber, the use of alcohol and drugs, made my job more challenging.
What, if any, communication did you receive from Mr. Depp in connection with the post-nup agreement?
I received one telephone call.
And whom did you receive that telephone call from?
Mr. Depp.
Please describe the telephone call from Mr. Depp.
My recollection is that he was very mean, that he called me names, and that he fired me on behalf of them.
When you say that he was very mean, what did you mean?
Well, my only exact recollection is he called me a
Mr. Depp threw a wine bottle across the room, the hotel room on one instance in Las Vegas while we were shooting Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He's just a jealous man, controlling. Where are you going? Who are you going with? What did you do last night? I had a scratch on my back once that got him very, very angry because he insisted it came from me having sex with a person who wasn't him.
All right, let's bring back in the think tank. Bernardo Villalona, Brian Watkins, Ian Friedman. Ian, you've got the fired talent agent, fired business manager. I think there was a lawsuit there too. Fired attorney and ex-sexual partner back in those wild mid-90s. How much damage to Johnny Depp? Because the picture they're painting is the classic prima donna star behavior, right?
It didn't feel like it was a lot of damage. And if you look online, the responses to those who have been watching every minute of this trial didn't seem to do a whole lot of damage. I mean, the attempt is obviously not to make him likable. The attempt is to show, just bad character and so forth. But really what it was also about are the damages here, right? Because he's saying, due to this op-ed, I lost X amount of money. And here we are asking for $50 million. These people are really just kind of brought in, a lot of these folks, to sit there and say, no, that's not the reason that things went down. He was showing up late, like we just heard. He wasn't nice anymore. People didn't want to work with him. The reason that people are not so affected by this is because exactly what you said. People don't like being fired. And there's obviously, people aren't going to have nice things to say about those who fired them. And you can always find people who aren't going to like you. You could be the greatest person in the world, and you live long enough, there's going to be people who don't like you, particularly if you're out in the public eye. So did it feel like a great amount of damage? Probably not. I think these were kind of inconsequential witnesses, and I think we've got the rest of the trial to kind of forget about these folks.
I think I have to disagree on one point that you made, Ian, because
sure.
I I think a guy like Brian Watkins, right? I don't think there's anyone that doesn't like Brian Watkins. I mean, if you have a problem with Brian, right? I mean,
you're right about that. There are very few people, and Brian is one. You're right. I can't say the same thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, Brian, your thoughts? Any damage to Johnny there?
No damage, and I'll tell you why. It actually makes Johnny look better, because if all the witnesses and everybody was, oh, he's perfect, then it's not believable. But why did this not cause damage to Johnny? Because he took the wind out of the sails, because he himself said, I have a problem with myself. I abuse myself. I have alcohol problem. I have a drinking problem, and all those things. But I don't lay my hands on Amber Heard. And so Johnny kind of took the winds out of that, the winds out of the sails on that testimony, because he accepted his non-perfection. And people understand that, and everything that you heard from those witnesses is something that you would expect from a star and a celebrity, and especially somebody who's not perfect. And so, no, not a lot of damage in my book.
Okay, Bernard, I want you to take a listen to some testimony that came a little bit earlier in the trial during Johnny Depp's case. And I call this this little medley of testimony, Johnny Be Good.
Over the course of your employment with Mr. Depp, have you seen him consume alcohol?
I have.
How frequently?
It ranged. Sometimes I wouldn't see him drink at all, and there'd be other times he, would have a glass of wine or two.
And based on your observations, how would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor after drinking alcohol?
His demeanor is the same as if you were talking to him. I would joke around with some of the other security personnel. He's, my terminology would be he's kind of too cool for school. He goes into that kind of Jack Sparrow mode, and he just, he's very likable, whether he drinks or he doesn't drink.
Did Mr. Depp ever interact with your son?
Yes, he was very kind.
How often did Mr. Depp interact with your son?
Whenever they were in each other's presence.
Can you give me an estimate of how often that happened?
Oh, countless times. He would even teach him how to play guitar. He brought him back from vacations. He showed him his amazing makeup makeover when he was doing Black Mass. He tricked him. He leant over and was saying, "Do you know who I am?" And the full makeup on his son's jaw almost hit the ground. It was really cute, actually. Yeah.
My opinion of what Johnny's reputation today is one of the finest actors of his generation.
Which would automatically make him a little quirky. All those great actors are. Bernardo Villalona, let me ask you, I'll get back to this jury, right? What do you think they're going to think of Johnny Depp? Johnny Depp, this jury, let's remember, young, male, 20s. Are they going to want to hang out with Johnny, someone that they can somehow relate to? Or do they see him as this obnoxious, drunken prima donna star?
So I don't see his as obnoxious. Now, I don't know how the 20-year-olds out in Virginia act, but I can tell you from experience, I think they probably do want to hang out with Johnny Depp. He's too cool for school. The thing is, in regards to him being an alcoholic, I see Johnny Depp as a functional alcoholic. So unfortunately, I have actually had to deal with functional alcoholics, and they have their ups and downs and can function. But you also have different types of alcoholics. Those who just completely pass out, those who are very lovable and just want to touch you and actually just tell you a whole bunch of stories, how much I love you. And then you also have those violent alcoholics. From what I've heard from Johnny Depp, he seems to be a functional alcoholic, not a violent alcoholic. And just like Brian said, and I don't really agree with Brian too much, let's watch out, make sure his head doesn't blow up from me giving him some kind of props here. Oh, make sure it wasn't his head. That because Johnny Depp already brought that out in his case, in his opening and through his testimony, guess what? At this point, I am tired of hearing that Johnny is an alcoholic, that he takes drugs. Guess what, Amber Heard? We know that already. So you're bringing all these witnesses to say the same thing, and it's not really doing much because we're already numb to it and we already got a heads up because Johnny Depp team gave you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And every great trial attorney knows to bring out the good, the bad, and the ugly in your case because you don't want the other side trying to shock the jury with that and seeming that we want to hide something.
All right, when we come back, more from inside the courtroom, plus I'm going to tell you about another big case that we are tracking out of Las Vegas, Nevada, involving a former Playboy model, Maxim model, on trial for murder of a doctor. Details when we return.
Call our helpline now.
May 2016 is when you told the world that Mr. Depp had physically abused you during your relationship. Isn't that right?
Well, that I had to provide testimony as part of my restraining order application, yes.
And that's how you became a public figure representing domestic abuse. Right, Ms. Heard?
From that point on, yes.
That's when you claimed you faced our culture's wrath, right?
That's when it started, yes.
But it's your testimony under oath that this statement is not about Mr. Depp.
It is not. It is about what happened to me afterwards. That's the more interesting thing for me to write about.
The next statement reads, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. This is also about Mr. Depp, isn't that right?
Not just about him, but he is included in that, yes.
He's the man you accused of abuse 2 years prior to this op-ed. Isn't that right, Ms. Heard?
Yes, but I wrote this op-ed in the context of many men at the time that were public figures or in this public eye being accused as well. So it was a reference in general to a larger phenomenon, not just Johnny.
Not just Johnny.
Not just Johnny.
Okay. And then you write, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. This one's also about Mr. Depp.
I did not write that.
Well, you've accused Mr. Depp of sexual violence in this very courtroom, haven't you?
Yes, but I was intending to keep that private when this was published. I had not publicly ever accused him of that.
I'm going to move to strike everything after the word yes.
No, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Important testimony because it goes right to the op-ed that was written by Amber Heard that is the subject of the defamation suit by Johnny Depp. We got more from inside the courtroom in just a minute. First, I want to tell you about another trial that we are tracking. This one comes out of Las Vegas, involves a former Playboy Playmate model. Ted Rowlands, Court TV anchor, has more.
Renowned psychiatrist Dr. Thomas Burchard had been missing for 3 days when his body was found in the trunk of an abandoned BMW in the desert outside of Las Vegas. Judy Earp, his girlfriend of 17 years, was back at their home in California and sensed the doctor was in trouble.
I told him repeatedly that these are not, the kind of people you want to be associating with.
Judy was worried about this woman, 25-year-old Playboy and Maxim model Kelsey Turner. Judy says Kelsey was extorting money from Dr. Burchard.
About $300,000 that I know about, and possibly more.
Burchard had a history of helping others and engaging with young, attractive girls he met online, like Kelsey. That's according to his friend, who did not want to be identified when he was interviewed by KSBW.
These women were just like an escape for him to have somewhere to go. He told me he met Kelsey on the website and met up with her, and they talked, and they went and had dinner a few times.
Dr. Burchard's friend says the psychiatrist started spending time and money on Kelsey, even renting this condo in Salinas, California for Kelsey and her mother to live along with Kelsey's child. Even after Dr. Burchard stopped paying the rent and Kelsey moved to Vegas, the two did keep in contact. And shortly before the murder, Kelsey reached out to the doctor, according to his friend.
He says, seems that Kelsey's having some trouble with her boyfriend out there in Vegas. He's hitting her, he's abusing her, and she has no money, nowhere to go. And I feel partly responsible for this.
Court documents show that Kelsey Turner was, in fact, reported as the victim in a domestic violence case less than a month before the doctor's murder. Dr. Burchard went to Vegas to see Kelsey, calling his girlfriend Judy only after he had arrived, saying he was spending the weekend and would be back on Monday.
I warned him on Saturday when he was there that, maybe you ought not wait till Monday to come home. Maybe you ought to just come home on the next flight.
After missing his flight and not responding to calls and texts, Judy called Las Vegas police. Dr. Burchard's body was found near Lake Mead, about 25 miles outside Vegas.
The actual incident occurred at a residence in the Las Vegas Valley, and then the body was found out by the lake.
This is the Las Vegas home where Kelsey and her boyfriend John Kennison were living and where investigators believe Dr. Burchard was murdered. Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, told a grand jury that Kennison attacked Dr. Burchard with a baseball bat and that after the initial attack, Kelsey insisted that her boyfriend knock him out. Pena also testified that the attack left Kennison covered in blood. According to arrest warrants, police recovered a bag from the Rio Hotel. It's where prosecutors say Turner, Kennison, and Pena fled to after the murder. Inside that bag, investigators found sheets of paper ripped from Dr. Burchard's notebook that contained his banking information and passwords.
Additional information has come to light.
Kelsey Turner was arrested in California 3 weeks after police recovered Burchard's body. Her extradition was delayed after it was determined that she was pregnant. She has since given birth to a girl while in custody. Her boyfriend, John Kennison, was arrested a few weeks later in Las Vegas. Both are facing murder charges. Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, pleaded guilty to accessory to murder and is expected to testify at their trials.
Okay, take a look. We've got a status hearing coming up June 21st and a trial date of June 27th. Nevada versus Kelsey Turner. We'll continue to track it. When we come back, time to hear from you, our 13th juror. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard's testimony, obviously extremely important. But I asked you, other than Johnny and Amber, who was the most important witness in this case? Your answer, your verdict, when we come back.
Ms. Iglesias, could you please describe what you did by way of makeup to prepare Amber Heard for the James Corden show on December 16, 2015?
Yes, we covered, I just did makeup, but just a little heavier with knitted. So we covered, the discoloration, the bruises with a little slightly heavier concealer. One that has a little more of a peach undertone, which I would normally don't use on Amber, but peach do cancel blue. So I did that under the eyes, and although Amber always, has a red lip, is one of the signature look, I remember clearly talking that we had no other option that night, but then to use a red blood, like a really red lipstick to, make sure we could cover up the injuries on the lip.
And were you able to cover all of the injuries with the makeup that you applied and as you just described?
Yes.
Beef today.
Can we'll just come in and just check. We just need to make sure everybody in here is okay, and then we. I called twice. So she did? Yeah. I don't know if she called twice or whoever called, but we just got another notification. So. It must have been a mistake. We just need to come in and make sure that everybody's okay. Yeah. Is they're all good? Nobody else is in here?
No.
Okay.
The other officers came by and checked the apartment and the other apartment as well.
Yeah. Okay.
It must have been like a double call.
Okay. Who's Amber? Okay. Johnny
is definitely not here.
He's not here? Okay.
There's some of the body cam footage from one of the police officers who testified in this case. And I posed the question today, let's put aside Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's testimony. Who is, other than those two, the most important witness in this case? And we begin tonight with our 13th jerk comment of the day, coming from Rini, who says, the police officers, of course, first, since they are unbiased witnesses, and then I think Isaac Baruch, he seemed to be very credible, honest, and likable. And police officers really was the overwhelming choice of most of the viewers who were responding to this. Let's bring back in our think tank, Bernardo Villalona, Brian Watkins, Ian Friedman. Brian, let me ask you, the police officers who showed up that night did not see anything. Didn't see what her friends testified they saw. Didn't see what Amber said she saw. I mean, how important are those LAPD officers?
Very important, because they're law enforcement officers, they're unbiased, they don't care, and they want to arrest the bad guy. And so if they thought Johnny Depp was a bad guy doing something bad, they would want to arrest him. There's no evidence otherwise to say that he had any sort of favor with them. So they're an unbiased witness just doing a job there to and trained to evaluate domestic violence situations and make a determination whether or not someone needs to go to jail. They were there. They've been trained to evaluate the situation. They evaluated the situation and said, nobody needs to go to jail here. Nothing happened. Very strong evidence.
I think it's significant because of the world we live in now. Like, if there's domestic violence as an officer, you need to, you're trained to, do something, take action. You have to. It's a big part of your job in those types of calls. And number two, in LA, I don't think you want to give celebrities special treatment, because that could come back and bite you too, couldn't it, Brian?
Absolutely, and Amber, she's a movie star also. So you got two celebrities fighting. Are they going to choose sides? No. I mean, the truth is, they live out there in Hollywood. They probably deal with celebrities all the time. It's probably not a big deal to them, and it certainly probably would not influence their actions while they're doing their job.
Next comment tonight from Mary, who says, Amber's makeup artist. She saw bruises and covered them up. Johnny's friend, bandmate, and former brother-in-law. He seems sincere and really was worried about Johnny's behavior. Ian, what about the makeup artist?
And the makeup artist, talked about covering up that, but she really doesn't know the sources of it. And so all she's going to do is convey exactly what she's been told. The jury now is listening to all the weeks to determine how were those caused. Was that at the hand, figuratively, literally, I suppose, of Johnny Depp and so forth. So all she's doing is the cover-up, but everything leading up to that, I don't think she's got that much importance in light of the fact that we have this long trial that's really discredited a lot of what's been said.
Renee, I think it's Renee, Dr. Curry, as she explained clinically the behavior of Amber and how and why she behaves that way. Bernardo, I said at the time, this is a really important witness when she testified, because there has to be some explanation from Johnny Depp's side as to why on earth would Amber Heard say these things, act this way, make these accusations, and Dr. Curry provides that explanation.
Yeah, she did. She gave a great explanation. Aside from that, Dr. Curry also said that Amber Heard was exaggerating when she was talking about that she was suffering from PTSD, to the point that she believed that she was lying and that she was faking it. So I think for the jury to have heard that from a doctor had a huge impact. So aside from the doctor, I would say this. The makeup artist, I'm going to tell you, I think she testified credibly. I don't think that she was lying. But what I do think is possible, and some people are not going to like this, is that Amber Heard may have caused those injuries to herself. That is a possible argument that Johnny Depp's team can put to that jury, because that makeup artist was credible when she testified. Again, I'm not blaming, I'm not coming up with things. I'm just saying about a possible argument for Johnny Depp's team.
Samantha tonight, the police officers with the cameras. There's no way you can lie yourself out of a situation that was recorded. Brian, I want to get back to you on that. When police show up, Amber Heard's side of the story is that she makes a call to the attorney, and as a result of the conversation with the attorney, does not cooperate. But then, like 5 days later, goes down to get the protective order, and that's when you try to... to me, that's a disconnect. Like, if you've been attacked and you're in danger, you would do it immediately, right? Why would you wait 5 days for the same? Because nothing happens in between that time other than some talk about a divorce.
Exactly, and that makes it look like it's a cold, calculated move that was brought on by attorneys with well thought out intentions in a divorce that's coming. And so that takes away all of what a TRO is, an emergency protective order, which means this is an emergency. I have to have this now. I need something done right now. This is a volatile situation versus it's not an emergency. It's not a volatile situation. I'll sit back. I'll consult with my lawyers. We'll think of a strategy and then execute a plan. The two opposite ends of the spectrum. So she loses a lot of credibility by not making this an emergency situation, then later claiming, oh yeah, that was an emergency situation.
Yeah, there was also some testimony. It might be a little under the radar. I'm sure we'll hear about it in closing arguments from the marriage counselor about Amber inquiring about whether or not she should get a restraining order relative to the divorce. And when I heard that, I perked up as well. Sasha, Adam Waldman putting hoax and perjury into the jury's minds has to be the smartest thing. Then the expert with the hashtags by Amber's own team getting and Amber as an abuser into court, letting the jury see what the public opinion in has to be the most epic goal ever seen. I think we'll just leave it right there tonight. Great job tonight, Bernardo Villalona, Brian Watkins, Ian Friedman. You realize 1 week from now, we could have a verdict in all this. It's pretty amazing. If you guys want to come, I'll be in Virginia. You guys feel free to go on down to Fairfax. You can join me. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, folks. Don't forget, next week, big week here on your front row seat to justice. We got so much to get to. But before we go tonight, I need to show you a photograph of a missing child. See you later.
survive.
Before we go, I have an important picture to show you. This is Russell Gomez, 14 years old, missing from Macon, Georgia, missing since May 6th of this year. If you see Russell, you can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the local county sheriff's office. The phone number is on the screen. Please, let's see if we can get Russell back to safety this weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Vinnie Politan. Have a great weekend, and as always, don't forget to hug the kids.
I did everything that I could, but you never loved me. I was merely convenient for you. I hope our divorce goes as quickly as possible and that it is as painless as possible.
There's no medical records reflecting that you sought treatment after this alleged incident.
I did not seek medical treatment at this time.
Mr. Depp said, "You will not see my eyes again." Do you recall that?
I do.
She was loud, fun, funny. She laughed a lot. Cut to the end of their relationship. She was so physically unwell.
Amber had a slight